Hello everyone, this is Dr. Tao's Quant Lab. In this video, we begin section 1.5, Investment, Psychology, and Discipline. Up to this point, we have talked about the market, the participants, and the mechanics of price. But we haven't talked about the most dangerous variable in the equation, you. Strategies, indicators, and financial models are merely tools. The hand that wields them belongs to a human being, susceptible to fear, greed, and cognitive bias. I want to be very clear. Without psychological discipline, even a strategy with a positive mathematical expectancy will eventually lead to ruin. Let's look at the primary barrier to profitability, attribution bias. This is a cognitive error where investors play a mental trick on themselves. When they succeed, they tell themselves, I'm smart, my analysis was correct, I worked hard. But when they fail, they say, it was bad luck. The market was manipulated. The news was unexpected. If you want to mature as a quantitative trader, you must invert this thinking. You must assume that profits might be luck, but losses are almost always a failure of risk management. Taking responsibility for losses is the only way to stop repeating them. Next, let's distinguish between rational profit seeking and greed. Economics is based on profit seeking. There is nothing wrong with wanting to make money. Rational profit seeking means acting on probability and structure to capture value. It is mathematical. Greed, however, is emotional. Greed is the urge to act aggressively based on a fantasy of wealth rather than the reality of the market. Greed is exactly what scammers exploit. They take low probability outliers, like a lottery winner or a single crypto explosion, and present them as high probability universal truth. If you lack basic probability common sense, you will treat these unrealistic desires as a valid investment thesis. This brings us to a psychological point that I want to emphasize. Investment is a practice. It is not just a method of making money. It is a discipline of chapter. Many people understand the principles. They know what a trend is. They know what a stop loss is. Yet, they still fail. Why? Because execution is the bridge between theory and success. Knowledge without execution is useless. To wrap up this section, I want to give you a quick mindset checklist to see before you trade. First, independent decisions. Do not act based on media headlines, Twitter, or other people's opinions. Do your own research. Second, decisiveness. When a valid signal appears, act. Do not hesitate. Hesitation is a sign that you do not trust your system. Third, self-correction. Follow your discipline strictly. We will cover the specific rules of discipline later in this chapter, but remember this. Account ruin usually does not come from many small losses. It comes from one or two big losses where you refused to correct a mistake. Fourth, post-trade review. Conclude after every trade. Summarize what happened. If you failed, learn why. If you succeed, verify it wasn't just luck, then move on. Do not dwell in regret. The market has no memory, and neither should you. Alright, that concludes subsection 1.5.1. In the next video, we will discuss the reality of risk and returns. And I will show you why aiming for 30% annual returns is often a recipe for disaster.